Hi, I'm Boult from Never Ever Media. We're here at Wildwood Studios in Surrey, and today we're looking at the universal audio devices, Arrow. The Arrow is the world's first Thunderbolt 3 bus-powered audio interface for both Windows and Mac. Stuart, can you get a Thunderbolt 3 on Windows?
Yeah.
That is a thing. This tiny device of power boasts two unison mic preamps with two line mic inputs on the back and one instrument input on the front. This appeals to my mess of a desk. This is not my desk. My desk is messy. The Arrow also comes with two 1/4" line out jacks for your monitors and a 1/4" headphone out. As me and Stuart discovered the other night, these are too close together for my speaker cables, so we had to improvise, including an auxiliary cable and a Bluetooth speaker. With an AD resolution of 24-bit 192 kHz, this entirely bus-powered unit, which means it's powered by your computer and nothing else, is a powerful little unit. And it also comes armed with UAD's Real-Time Analog Classics plug-in bundle, incredibly sought after, and it includes UA610 8-tube preamp and EQ, Marshall Plexi Classic complete with missing mids knob and input jumping options, Teletronics LA2A leveling amp, 1176 SE limiting amp, Ampeg SVT VR bass amp, precision delay modulation, Pultec EQP passive EQ, and many more. And using the Arrow's included console and thanks to its single core processor, you can record with all of these plugins in real time with a latency of under 2 milliseconds. And more importantly, it's an all aluminium chassis with a foam bottom, so it doesn't slide all around the desk. Good for non-slip, even better for battering the guitarist for not practicing his solos. Now for such a little unit, this has got a lot of flexibility behind all the buttons. You have a metering panel which shows the input level for channels 1 and 2 and the outputs for your 1/4" monitor out and your headphone out. Pressing the preamp button changes the device to control input. In this mode, the level dial will increase or decrease the input levels for channels 1 and 2, as well as enabling the preamp controls. The preamp controls are individual to each channel and can be activated or deactivated separately. To change which channel you're changing, simply press the preamp button. Again, look, see it's switching between 1 and 2. You definitely can't see what it says, but it is. The preamp controls include input, which changes the input type for the channel selected and switches between a mic input, a line level input, and high Z, which is the instrument jack on the front. A high pass filter, which filters the input to only allow higher frequencies to pass through. Get it? A 48-volt phantom power switch to allow you to power condenser mics or DI boxes. A -20 dB pad for when recording particularly loud audio sources like an active bass or an active singer. Polarity inverse or phase switching, which is particularly useful when using two mics to avoid any phase cancellation issues. And a link button, which links inputs 1 and 2 to a single stereo output. This is great for recording stereo instruments, for example a keyboard. It should be noted that this mode is exclusive to the two inputs on the back of the device and not the high Z jack. This cannot be linked to any of the two inputs on the top. So if there's a cable inserted into the high Z jack, you cannot turn on link. Output controls are simple and streamlined. By pressing monitor, you switch the device from input to output. It will now change the output levels. It will also prevent you from making any changes to the input controls. Makes no change whatsoever. And by pressing the monitor button again, you switch between the two stereo outputs the Arrow offers, those being monitor and headphone. Another useful feature is while monitor mode is selected, if you press the dial in, it mutes all monitor outputs. The headphones still work, but it mutes all monitor outputs. Press it again, and it unmutes. Look, you can see it turns red. You could see it would turn red if the softbox would stop reflecting. Stuart, it's your fault. Now we're going to look at the console software that comes with Arrow, but we're only going to briefly touch on this since it's ridiculously complicated and frankly, manuals bore me. We'll leave a link to it in the description. On the overview tab, there are channel ships for input 1 and 2, complete with preamp gain controls and some of the features from the device's preamp controls, which take the place of the controls on the front of the device. What I basically mean by that is clicky here, no touchy here. Effects inserts, where you can use all those fancy UAD plugins you just got and record them in real time with a latency of less than 2 milli... Didn't I already say this? Accents, planning, solo and mute, and a final level fader. The inputs tab is a simplified version of the channel ships for input 1 and 2, based around your input options. The same deal for the inserts tab, it gives you a much more focused view for your inserts. And finally, the sense tab is the same thing for the aux we mentioned earlier. On the right of the software is the main output meter. Insert effects options, where you can select UAD rec, which means any inserts you have in your strip are also recorded to your DAW, or UAD mon, which means the effects will only be heard in your headphones, allowing you to bottle port sounds for the sake of recording and letting you play with them properly later. The exception to this is any unison plugins, as these cannot be bypassed and will always be recorded to your DAW. The show panel, which allows you to show or hide your aux faders and your control room, allowing you to adjust the dim level and switch your source between mix and headphones. You can change your output to mono, which is great for checking mixes or for any phase cancelling problems, and you can also mute your output altogether. And you adjust your monitor level here as well. The info bar is at the bottom of the console window and displays tempo, so you can change the BPM of any time-based effects you're using, the sample rate, which you can change here, whether the clock is internal or external, and finally a meter displaying how many of your DSP resources you're using. You can also make further changes to your hardware settings, the I/O matrix, your interfaces display, all UAD plugins, whether or not you already own them, and finally your MIDI. We're not going any deeper into this software, this video is already long enough. The Universal Audio Arrow is a serious bit of kit, and while the Thunderbolt 3 requirement is quite limiting to what computers you can use it on, if your computer can run Thunderbolt 3, then this is a serious rival to the Apollo, and it might be exactly what your home studio is missing. The only other drawback I can really think of is that you can't use the UAD plugins without the Arrow being connected, as it effectively acts as a sort of dongle that checks your eligibility to use it. Dongle. If you can get past that, it's a great bit of gear. Solid enough to be thrown in a kit bag for off-site recording, but most importantly, you can build a Marshall stack using the Marshall Plexi plugin, Google Images, and a bit more free time than you've really got. I'm Boult for Never Ever Media. Come check out our studios at Wildwood, our website and social media is in the description below. Come rehearse and record with us. Help support the channel by liking this video and subscribing for more awesome gear reviews. Next time we're pitting the Arrow against the ID4. I'm Boult. Laters.